And out of all of the things that they were doing, what do you think were the really critical bits where they were actually, that really helped them to improve their writing?
Sessions with Hilary, the children's author, where she would do practical games and activities with them to start off with, get them all warmed up, and then they would start writing, and then they were encouraged to sort of go back and redraft their work and recheck it. And as I said before, they found that so much easier on the computer to recheck the work. I think it's been an age-old problem with teachers where you say, go back and redraft your work, make that piece of writing a bit better, and it's like, oh, do you have to pick the pencil up? You can physically see it in their body language. I don't want to pick that pencil up and start writing again. Whereas with the computer, they don't actually have to go back and write the whole thing out again. They can just go back, take pieces out, and, you know, although it seems like the computer's doing the work for them, it isn't, it's them doing the work themselves. And it was great with the netbooks because the difference between them and a standalone computer was they were all connected up together using SmartSync, and we could have that on the teacher's whiteboard, and we could say to them, right, oh, let's have a look at what this person's doing over here. Oh, you've done this. Which bit of this are you working on now? And they would say, oh, I'm going to change this bit, I don't like this bit. And somebody might say, oh, I actually think that bit's really good. You know, but it's that bit that doesn't make sense to me. What were you trying to say? So then they were editing each other's work. So the difference between children revising their work on their own and when they were revising their work using the netbooks, there was a significant, hugely significant amount of children who were revising their work with the netbooks than we'd previously found in school. We'd say 7 times the amount of revision compared to before.
What kinds of revisions were they actually doing? You know, what were they adding into the writing, or how were they changing the writing that you saw as evidence that they were really writing very much better?
Well, it was all the sorts of things that you would hope for them to do and encourage them to do, but would be quite a lot of work. So you might say to them, you know, have you put paragraphs in there? Have you checked your full stops? Have you got some, you know, good adjectives, good describement? That's an awful lot. If you've got your piece of writing and the page is quite full, you have to basically start again in a book. But with the netbooks, they don't have to start the page. The work they've done, they knew was perfectly okay. But they could just, right, I can just click there, add in a few more words, that's fine. Oh, I can read through, I haven't got my full stops and things like that. And they were actually more keen to share it with other pupils next to them and say to them, will you read my work, how does that sound to you? Because it was typed on the computer. For some children whose handwriting maybe isn't as legible, whereas other people might sort of go, I'm not too sure what their work says because I can't read it in the book. On the netbooks, children are able to read and they go, you've missed out a couple of words there, read that sentence again, that doesn't make sense. And it might be, you know, one day went to the, or one day we went to, or one day they went to, or one day Tom went to, and they could put in, that's very basic sentence, they were writing much better sentences than that. But that's an example of how they were able to use other children as well to help mark the work and improve it. So they were putting in things like the paragraphs, like the punctuation, much better descriptions, or they might have just, if they were quite happy with their work, because you occasionally do get children who will say, oh no, mine's fine, it's okay, doesn't need anything doing. And we'd say, well, just take a part of it and really try and make that fabulous and fantastic. So they take a section and really work on developing that part, and then they start going, well, the other bit doesn't sound as good now, and that's where we go from there. But I think because with the netbooks, what they typed is there, and things can be moved down and shifted and fitted in, and it doesn't start messing up the work too much. In fact, it just, word process just fills it in neatly, you know. They prefer that, and they're happier to edit their work in that way.
We track the children's progress very, very carefully. And out of that group, it was a Year 5-6 project, and the Year 5s actually did really, really well, better than we would have expected, and even better than we would have expected of that cohort, that group of children. So a large number of that group got level 5s at the end of their optional SATs at the end of Year 5. Now level 5s, obviously, as you know, what we expect is much higher than you would expect nationally at the end of Year 6. So they made outstanding progress in that, and they made progress from the beginning of the project to the end of the project, because we tracked it particularly, because we wanted to show that there was a difference, and it made a difference.
They did 7 times as many revisions of their writing. Was that surprising?
Yes, because it's been such a struggle for such a long time to get children to do that. You know, and as creative as you can be, and even with rewards and bribes that you could give them, they still don't. And even your high flyers who have done a good piece of writing, who would want to do even better, don't necessarily sort of like going back and redrafting that work and rechecking it, but everybody did. And so even for the high flyers would go and do it, that was fine, but even for the more special needs pupils who really struggle with it, it was all there and ready, and they could use what they had written and just change. You know, one boy in particular who's very poor came to me and said, "Miss, I've added in this word and I put this word in to make it better, is that okay?" You know, whereas before, if you'd have given him his writing, he wouldn't have known where to start.